one thing, and you can ignore these questions, Todd, like, you do not have to answer them at all, but I'm just kinda curious,
Mhm.
anything you are willing to talk about, 'cause you didn't really get in, and I know it's personal and maybe you didn't want to,
Yep.
but I don't wanna know, like, details, but, like, what was going on, if you're willing to talk about with the video game addiction? Were
Oh,
you
yeah.
the
Good point.
obvious thing is spending too much time, but the details matter a little bit. Was it,
Yeah.
like, taken away from your work where you weren't making as much money? Or was it just, like, things like you weren't spending enough time with your wife or all the above? Or give some personal things if you want to. I mean, I'm
No,
just curious to get context.
that's actually a great question because I can probably help people as far as the circumstances. Two things. Yes, I was not working as much as I should have. I know I had guys doing the work, but there was areas where I failed as well, and it suffered financially. I suffered financially for it because I was
Gotcha.
addicted to Rock Band. I'd be playing Rock Band in the middle of the daytime. Well, I should be out working my ass off. But the main thing was that 7 to 10 every day. I know it was a lot longer back then. She doesn't work as crazy as she does now, but um, I was in the office 24/7, it seemed. Like I never left. And my kids would be, where's dad? Oh yeah, dad's in the office. Don't bug him. He's gaming right now. I walked
Yeah.
in there and he about bit my head off. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And my wife just had enough one night. She said, "You know
Mhm.
what?" She stayed up and when I was done gaming for the night and I walked in to go to bed, we had that come to Jesus meeting and she was in tears. We were both in tears. Mm. Just thinking
Mhm.
about it right now gets me upset that I put her through that. So that was the
Yeah. Well,
circumstances behind
yeah.
my gaming addiction and what kind of got me eventually. It didn't happen overnight, but eventually I started turning things around.
No,
So yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, man.
And again, whatever you wanted to or not wanted to talk about,
No,
it
no, I mean,
helps.
no, I think that's pertinent
I
to
think
the
it helps others
conversation.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's all very interesting. I am married for 9 years. I did have a previous marriage,
Mhm.
and some of these things make a lot of sense. For me, there was talk from my ex's side about video game addiction, but when it was all said and done, there wasn't any video game addiction. I think she was just making it as, like, one of her reasonings that she wasn't happy with me.
Yeah.
She actually called for the divorce, and I didn't want it, but when it was all said and done and we separated, it was like a breath of weight off my shoulder. I'm like, "Ooh, this was actually the right move." I did not think that until the actual separation happened, but when it did, it was the right thing. I won't go into all the details. It really is good for people to think about, well, like when I said things earlier, you know, ways you can know you are addicted is if there's like three things, and it doesn't have to be all three, but like you feel like you're spending too much time, someone else feels like you're spending too much time, meaning like you're not getting things done that you need to or want to get done, and even like losing money, right?
Yeah.
And it's worth, if you're not even sure, talking to a therapist, people that actually know this, because a lot of times video game addiction is more of a thing than people talk it up to be. I'm not saying you weren't, Todd, but a
Yeah.
lot of times people, friends and family that don't understand video games are like, "Oh, they're addicted to video games," when that means nothing. They're not addicted to video games. It just means you don't like video games. You see someone playing it a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I'm not trying to make any points here. It's just this is all stuff I'm like making
Yeah.
in my mind. But it even was said to me a little bit. So I have definitely some remembrances of that fake issue. And I really appreciate what you said, Todd, because it
Yeah.
sounded like yours was a little more realistic on, yeah, you had some issues with that or whatever.
And I was totally
That's
blind to it. I
mhm.
I figured she was busy doing her thing. I'm busy doing my thing, right? But what was
Yeah.
really happening is I was spending no time with my wife and she was
Yeah.
raising our kids. And this was when they were really, really young. But
And
um,
especially if they wanna spend time with you, right? It's one
yeah,
thing if the other person doesn't wanna
yeah,
spend time with you, but if they do, that is the issue, and that's where it was awesome you were able to see that of it. Well, she talked to you about it,
yeah.
and then you were able to see it,
I,
and
I
yeah.
must emphasize it did not happen overnight. There was a lot of denial. That's usually
Mhm.
part of addiction is denial, right?
Sure. Sure.
I'm not spending enough time. I'm doing fine. I see the kids every day, right? I see the kids
Mhm.
every day. I kiss my wife goodnight. I kiss my wife before she goes to work in the morning. I'm doing the right things, But then when you start to really think about it, and it was that argument that we had where she was in tears, where it really made me start to process it. And that's when I
Mhm.
realized that
Yeah.
I had a problem.